listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed, support causes that matter, change lives, change communities, change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Introducing the YMCA. Sure, you know the Y for a swim or a game of hoops, but we're more than that. We're a cause. When you take a jump shot at the Y, someone else is getting job training. Practice yoga as a team practices her leadership skills. We give people of all ages, incomes, and backgrounds a chance to learn, grow, and thrive. So while you might think of the Y as the place for lifting weights, we're also about lifting entire communities. That's the Y. We're so much more. Visit ymca.net/more.
Hi, this is Jared Mans from the Spring Lake Fire Department, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
This portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Visit their newest branch, conveniently located at the Ulster Commons Plaza in Lake Katrine. Experience the difference that local community banking offers with the convenience of another great location, easy access, plenty of parking, and a 24-hour ATM. Ulster Savings Bank, invested in community, invested in you. Member FDIC.
We got some birthdays today.
Okay. Good morning, Hugh. Good morning, Mario.
Good morning, Maxwell. How are you?
Good morning.
I'm good. I'm freezing.
And happy 6th degree Friday.
That's right.
I couldn't believe, you really start to feel winter when you're talking single digits here.
Yeah. Good old-fashioned upstate.
Yeah, this is a yep. This is when they'd be cutting ice on the Hudson.
Yeah. That's right. And tonight it's supposed to be like -4 or -3, so.
Geez. That doesn't sound very
no, it doesn't. Yeah, tomorrow it's like 16, but it's supposed to warm up again Monday, so.
All right. Well, it is what it is. It's
Ben Franklin said, everybody talks about it.
Think about it. If it wasn't for global warming, it would have been negative today.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. Could have been 20 below.
Anyway,
what's new, Kat?
Good morning.
Been 2 weeks since our listeners tuned in.
And we got a lot of things have been happening. Honestly, I'm not even sure where to start. So, anyway, one of the things I noticed this week was that the Freeman had an article about 7 members of the county executive's senior team were either replaced or
retired or fired.
Whatever.
Or moved on to something else.
Something happened. We haven't yet been able to establish what that was. But what's your take on this? First of all, why was there, in your opinion, so little information about what's going on? After all, these are our tax dollars at work. This is senior administration officials. What's the big secret?
I don't know what the big secret is, but these things. If we could get to that in a moment, these changes like this occur to put this in context, with any administration, Pat Ryan has been in office, I think he's entering his fourth year.
Yeah.
He was elected in 1919.
He runs for re-election this year.
2019, and he'll be up for re-election next year. People move on. Some of these folks who were here, who we don't know yet who they are or were. I mean, they're not dead, but they left for various reasons. They serve at the pleasure of the executive, which means they don't have any kind of protection when he feels it's time for them to move. They move. There was another element of this that I thought of after I wrote Monday's column, or I should say yesterday's column, that the other element is that there may be word going through the administration itself. There's always been speculation about a young, up-and-coming politician like Pat Ryan. He's only 39 years old.
Right.
I mean, you and I have underwear older than that.
Yeah.
And what's his game plan? Where's he going? I think you mentioned him for lieutenant governor at one point.
I thought that he would be a perfect match for Letitia James. And then she ran for the hills and left him in the dust. So, but I thought that he was gearing. I don't know if you recall, but he had set up a political action committee.
Yeah.
We haven't heard one word about that.
No.
All of a sudden, this was headline news in the Freeman, and
everything he sends out
they were all over the place.
Everything he sends out is headline news.
And all of a sudden it just disappears into the woodwork. So maybe those statewide aspirations are on hold at the moment. He's not an attorney. He's not running for attorney general. But it was a natural. It was just a natural. She needed, if she was going to run.
Well, that's that's actually post-mortem now.
Yeah. I mean, but she needed somebody upstate. Yeah.
Yeah, no question. And that dynamic, which has been New York State politics. Do you remember in the days when they used to have so-called ethnic balancing?
Oh yeah, sure.
You needed people of different nationalities, and not only.
Hochul ethnically balanced.
Cuomo.
No, she balanced her ticket. She put on an African American senator from
Brooklyn,
Bronx, I believe, as her running mate, and I think it was very well received. And I think that was an attempt to short circuit Letitia James, in my opinion. But
I wonder if she'd reconsider that decision now that James is not there. Well, that's
no. I think he's a solid citizen. This guy, I really think he does. He's
paid his dues.
Yeah, and he's much. I think he's much more involved than she was with Cuomo.
Well, she was rejected. She was rejected by Cuomo.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting back to the. I know the listeners and the readers don't really care much about the politics of media, as it were, but this was I don't know if I've seen a press release of this subject like this before. If you replace somebody, you typically include the person who was in the position, and usually with some kind words. So Catalano did a nice job as my deputy. I wish him well. And so forth. Well, there was no mention of that at all. And I looked at it, and I turned the page over. I thought maybe it's on the back or something.
Yeah.
When they got the press release. And no, it wasn't there at all. And so, of course, speculation starts, unnecessary speculation, I believe, starts about just who was replaced.
Right.
And I got word from a very reliable source yesterday that it is one of the victims, perhaps, was not Dan Torres.
Yeah.
Who is I think he's an assistant executive, a deputy.
Yeah, he's the political operative, though. Let's call spade here.
That was Richard Gerentine's description of him.
Yeah.
When they actually, the legislature, I think, fired him because he was operating so blatantly for Elliot Auerbach.
Right.
And but I think he's matured. He's not as blatant as he used to be. But yeah, he helped get Pat Ryan elected, and Pat Ryan reciprocated. So he's not going anywhere, or as far as I know, he's not going anywhere.
Well, were you able to find out who was replaced?
Not yet.
All right. So how do you know he wasn't?
It was a very good source.
Okay.
The source and I did not talk about the source.
You don't
The
reveal
source would
his
not. Yeah, well, he's a political operative. It wasn't his place, for one thing, to reveal who. I mean, this is nonsense. These are people who are probably still in office. You know, we're still paying these folks.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose they gave them 30 days notice. Maybe they're gone.
Who knows? You know.
First of the year could have been.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I think it speaks to the broader issue for, and I think people should start to get concerned about these issues, that they really don't know what their government is doing until it's done, and then you have to live with it, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And there isn't this public input, and this nonsense. As soon as I see the word transparency next to a politician's name, I know that this I'm never going to see it again.
Yeah.
You know, it's gone.
Yeah.
And this was a classic case. I don't know, when you draw up a press release like this, I assume the executive puts his initials on the bottom.
Yeah.
Hey, what about Catalano? You know, is he gone? He was my department head. I think the position of budget officer has been is on this list. That's a very important job.
Yeah, the head, the
finance department.
Yeah, the head magician.
Exactly.
Making this budget, you know.
Make it work.
And justifying the spending is the way I see it, because, you know, they're swimming in money, yet they just couldn't manage to give any of it back to us. They're swimming in our money, and they just couldn't manage to get any of it back to us.
When you get hold of a bone,
that's
you
it.
don't let go. You're chewing on this one, gnawing.
Listen, I am seeing this at every level. The governor put out her budget. Okay, $216 billion. Okay, $216 billion. So here, I want to make a comparison, though, because in order to see just how impactful our taxes are on our lives, let's look at other states of a similar size. So the state that comes to mind very, very quickly is Florida. And New York. Florida just recently surpassed New York as the third largest state.
Because all the New Yorkers moved down there.
Yeah, all the New Yorkers, yeah, exactly. The place is swimming. It's crawling with that.
Soon to be even more.
Yeah, one of my children lives in Fort Lauderdale. She calls it Newark with palm trees. And anyway, but the Florida budget is approximately half of what the New York State budget is. They somehow can run that state on a little over $100 billion. New York State, $216 billion, twice. So, you know, if you want to see it, and you know, and what's really interesting is the number of public officials and public employees that immediately charge out of this state and become Florida residents to save the state income tax and to save the school taxes and whatever.
And take their pensions with them.
And these are folks that are getting pensions from the schools and from the school system and from the state, and they're out of here before. I mean, the dust isn't, the ink isn't even dry on their retirement.
The dust is rising,
and they're already down at the Motor Vehicle Bureau in Florida getting Florida plates. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And these are the guys that are. I mean, I remember at one point in time I heard the figure of how much how many New York State and the quantity and the quality of the number of retirement checks from New York State retirement system that are mailed to people in Florida. It's absurd. I can understand wanting to rent the sun for a few months in the winter, but these folks declare residency in Florida, and man, that's it. Their take-home income, everything, Social Security increases probably 5-6%. Well, with that kind of money, I mean, heck, you can buy a house on us.
Does Florida have an income tax?
No.
Yeah. Whoa, that's a nice boost. Plus, those pensions, those state pensions and teacher pensions are exempt from New York State taxes.
Yeah.
Now, one thing the legislature can do, but it won't, is say, all right, if you want to move to Florida or California or Texas or some other place, then you're not going to get a tax break from New York.
Yeah, because you're not staying here and spending the money here. Yeah. And I think they could do that, but you know how that works. No. They are owned lock, stock, and barrel by the teachers union. Hey, listen, all the more credit. I appreciate political power when I see it, and you have to look no further than the teachers.
Well, Mario,
teachers union.
As a veteran politician, you appreciate the distinction between power and control.
Yeah, that too. Unbelievable. These people are deathly afraid of them. So this is a good segue into another very interesting situation with there's a commission in Ulster County that decides on pay for public officials.
Yes.
All right. Now, do you know who the chairman of that commission is?
I have no idea. And pardon me, because I should.
None other than Richard Gerantine.
Get out of here.
I
did not know that.
Okay, so we're talking.
They never go away, these guys.
We're talking inside baseball here.
Yes.
Okay. One of the people who was involved in.
Hold that thought. Yeah. Gerantine was in office for 28 years, and the only thing they raised, I think the sheriff got a couple of minor bumps. Yeah, a few thousand, the token.
Yeah.
The only thing they raised during that period was their own salaries. They went from $10,000 to $14,000. So he had every opportunity as a senior member of the legislature to say, well, maybe these salaries should be adjusted 10, 12 years after they were originally brought in.
Well,
and then they put this guy back. Well, maybe that's good for taxpayers. Maybe Gerantine, who's so tight-fisted.
Not even a chance.
I'm being naive.
Yeah. So listen, folks. You hear? We got the Friday morning Mario and me show, and our number is 331-9255, and you can. And so we're taking calls this morning, and when we've got a call. Good morning, caller.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Good morning. Hope you're staying warm. This is my question for you. A specific question, but then a more general one. About 2 weeks ago, and you had covered this on the show, how Cuomo, the charges were not going to be pursued. This is my question for you. That might have happened. I don't know if it might have been on a Tuesday. The next morning on that next day, Governor Hochul had a press conference in out in the west, and during the press conference, she proposed having a term limit for the governorship of 2 terms. And I thought it was very coincidental that the news broke the day before, and she comes out the next morning to talk about a 2-term limit for the governorship, which means, I guess, Cuomo couldn't ever run again. Not that he is. So my first question is, was that a coincidence, or was that a deliberate move on her part, do you think? and that was going to be sent to the New York State, Assembly and all. And my second question is more generally, what do you feel about term limits? I haven't really thought about it, but I know it comes up now and then. What do you think? And thank you so much.
Thank you for those questions.
Great
Cole.
questions.
You realize that we were on a roll on the previous subject, but now we're not. But we'll
be back.
We'll be back with that in a moment. Catalano was really cranked up. Well, going in reverse order, term limits, we could probably do a half an hour on that.
Yep.
The pros and cons are, we just mentioned Jaron, a former county legislator who served 28 years. I think that's too much, but the people of Marlboro, where he lives, would probably still be electing him for the next 28 years. So there is that side of it, that if we like someone in office or doing a good job, we should have a right to vote for him or her. The other side is the people get people in office or at a job too long. Sometimes just get they lose their edge. It becomes routine. They lose their energy, and it's not about getting old either. You do the same thing over and over again. You run for office every 2 years, and this and that, and then there's the inbreeding that goes on. Of course, it's one of the opposite arguments that when you get new people in there, they don't really know the system, and it takes a year or two. For the dumber ones, maybe 28 years. But so there, as you indicate, the caller, there's a lot of pros and cons. I'm more of a term limit. I'm more on the term limit side, and some of these rules are written so a legislator has to leave office for like 2 years or 4 years. There's something to say.
A real job.
You get a real job. There's something to say to go back and live among your constituents with the laws that you approved, and that,
Sure.
and so that's not a bad thing. New York City has term limits.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be a panacea. That was going to get the dead wood out, and younger, presumably, new people in there with fresh ideas and energy and commitment to their causes, and some of that happened. But I wouldn't hold, like Alan Shartok did a few weeks ago, I wouldn't hold New York City up to as an example of efficient, responsive government. I'm afraid, quite frankly, to even go to New York City anymore.
Yeah, you get to a point, is when speaking of New York City, when it's hard to get the dead wood out when it's almost all dead wood. So,
like I said, Catalano, you're on a roll. Keep going.
I mean, think about it.
I'm thinking.
It's really difficult. They don't have as many people as they have. They just don't have the breadth of really qualified candidates, in my opinion.
Well, it's a one-party town. That's part of it.
Well, that's the other issue. I think part of this term limit stuff is some of the folks who are dreaming about term limits and think that it's, that are in favor of it also thought that it would create more turnover. It would maybe balance the books a little bit better, having more of a two-party system. But no, when one party rules, all it does is just create a lot of infighting into one party. And
creates a lot of primaries.
Yeah, lining up and primarying. But in spite of all of that, my biggest issue, and it continues to be my biggest issue with this whole process, is the career politicians. I think that they are just a real problem in terms of when you are an assemblyman or a senator for 30 or 40 or whatever years, you just lose. You lose your contact with, in my opinion, with the real world, with what's going on, what they call the kitchen table issues, the bread and butter issues. You just lose your perspective. And I'm starting to see that, again, not to mention any names, but we have a couple of state senators that I can think of in the immediate vicinity who are very young, and they look at this as a career.
Yeah, they're in their early 30s.
Yeah, and I don't think either of them ever had a real job. They ran for office. Senator Skoufis, for instance, I think
he was an assemblyman at 25.
Yeah, so he never had any real-world experience. And Senator Hinchey, I don't know what. I remember she had a very weak resume. I mean, it was just some hocus pocus.
I think her resume was called Maurice.
Yeah, right. I'm Maurice's daughter. But the thing is, I can just see that as a real negative. It's a real negative.
But then you think of, just to air this a little bit, Mario, I don't disagree with you, but then you think of a guy like Bill Larkin or John Bonasek, who were only, a term removed from, well, Larkin is deceased. But those guys, they knew all the nooks and crannies and where the money was hidden and who was really making the decisions in whatever department it was. They'd pick up a phone, say, "Hey, this is Bill Larkin," and they would the department head would come to the phone. There is something to say for that.
I agree that then what you got to do is you got to weigh the pros and the cons.
Yeah, of course.
Neither Bonasek or Larkin though was solely a career politician. They had both of them had outside interests. Both of them had worked outside. Larkin had been in the.
Hey, let me tell you a story about that. Larkin was early in his assembly career. He was at a business meeting. It was a meeting of entrepreneurs, and guys had name tags on, Bill Larkin, whatever, like to have at these meetings. So a business person comes up to Larkin, and he says to him, "So, Bill, what do you do for a living?" And Larkin says proudly, sticks his chest out, and says, "Well, I'm the assemblyman." And the guy goes, "Yeah, Bill, but what do you do for a living?"
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, he ran a pretty successful dry cleaning business.
Yeah.
Which
and the thing is, that's my opinion now. What they've done is they've actually raised salaries, and then they limit the amount of outside income, which is a number of them quit after that happened.
Yeah.
But the point is, there was, although there were conflicts of interest, there's also something to be said for actually making a payroll, having to, deal with the regulations that were passed. You got two state senators now that never had a job. So they passed a regulation with no down ballot information, let's say, about how that's actually going to affect that small business owner or that big business owner. They just pass regulations that sound good, but they don't have any real world experience on what it's like to deal with the government on these issues. And that's where I have a real problem, and I would love to see more turnover. And, you can go in there, you want to keep them in for 10 years, fine. 10 years, then move on. Go get a real job, okay? Go get a real job. Don't work for government. Get a real job, like the rest of us who have, had to, you had your own newspaper. I have my, you know what it's like to make payroll and to deal with all the other issues that you have to deal with, including the interference by government in the conducting of your affairs.
Plus, as a former business owner, not the most successful business owner, but having seen that side of the equation, I could relate as a reporter. Then I could relate better to business people because we have similar we had similar issues to deal with. If you're just you go from high school to government, you have no such experience. I think it was a line from LBJ that I like to quote once in a while. He's looking at all these Kennedy Ivy League whiz kids, and they were really sharp people, men for the most part. I don't know. It's a long time ago whether Kennedy had any women in his cabinet, but LBJ, who
used to keep them in the
in the swimming pool, But Johnson came up through the ranks, although he was a career politician too. But he'd been a teacher, and he ran some Depression era programs for Roosevelt. Johnson said he looked around the room and he said, "Yeah, these guys are really sharp. They call them whiz kids and all that." And he says, "I just wish a few of them had run for sheriff someplace."
Yeah, right.
So you get a sense of government. But so that's our short answer to that. We're, I think we're for term limits, caller. And the other question was, there's a saying in politics: there are no coincidences. Everything is so carefully scripted and planned and organized. There is this advice very early in my career from then Alderman Pete Mancuso, rest his soul. I used to hang out at his bar on Broadway, the Shamrock. And
you got some of your best,
I got
information.
It was a great source, source of information.
Bartenders.
Yep. And Pete said to me, it was a nice way of putting it. He said to me, I like your column. I was new at it, and I was just writing a column. He said, I really like your column, Huey. It's interesting. Well, thanks, Pete. But he said, some of the conclusions you draw, I know you're. It's called deductive reasoning. You don't have all the information, but from the information you have, you try to, like we tried to figure out with these salaries. How the hell
sure.
And like the callers suggested, was this a conspiracy with Hochul and Cuomo? But he said, I never forgot this, and I don't mean to demean anybody, but he said, really, Huey, he said, these guys are not as smart as you think they are. And Mario, you've been inside much more than I have as a former Republican chairman.
And a former legislator, too.
And a legislator, however briefly,
2 years was enough.
2 years. I can remember you as a legislator. They sat you on the aisle because you had those long legs sticking out. You were too tall for the seat.
Actually, I got an honored location. I sat right behind the majority leader at his request. Not bad for a freshman.
Yeah, in his ear.
Well, what happened was the year I ran was the year after the term after the Democrats had a 17-16 majority.
That was the comeback year. Yeah.
And they they misread, as they're doing right now, their mandate. All right, they had a 17-16 majority. They didn't have a mandate, but they wanted to switch the county form of government to
executive.
They wanted to have a charter form of government.
Charter.
Okay, So I was a history and government major in college, so. As the conversation got going, I was like, there are pros, there are cons, whatever. And I wrote a white paper for all the Republican candidates on the benefits, and so that when they went door to door, whatever, they would have a reasonable amount of information to discuss with the people who were, if anybody approached them about. I'm in favor of the charter, I'm against the charter, whatever. They would have all this information, which none of them ever bothered to research, including the Democrats, because they were dumbfounded with, some of the stuff I had found, and so it not only did it go down to a crushing defeat, but we went from 17-16 Democrat to I believe it was 25-8 Republican. So it was a disaster, and I'm telling you, that's why I'm predicting 2022 to be that way for the Dems again in Congress. But in any event, so I came, I became kind of like a go-to person on governmental issues, this and that, and West wanted me as close as possible in case he needed, just a whisper here and a whisper there. You know how Billy was. He did a lot of whispering. And
the Woodstock whisperer.
And Roach was the chairman, and so Bill said, I want you to sit right behind me, and in case I need to.
Can I ask you, since you have this experience, and I've never had this experience as a reporter, we're kind of we are outside the circle. You mentioned that you gave a white paper to your candidates, 33 at the time, listing the pros and cons. Now, my memory, which is not as good as it used to be, is that Republicans were vehemently against that charter. They killed it. It was the Republican Party that killed that charter.
Yeah, and it was more cons than pros. That's
you got 33 people out there going con on it, and you got 33 people who really don't understand what they were advocating. The results are predictable, but I've often wondered about this, Mario. As a practicing politician, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
You're going door to door. Usually, in those days, you had 4 other legislators running with you.
In my district, there were 5 of us.
Yeah, in that big district. What do people talk about when they go door to door? My experience from my own door, the candidate knocks on my door. Hi, I'm Mario Cataloni. I'm in the city of Kingston. Hands me his campaign card or a pen or something, and then leaves. They don't talk.
It was very interesting. Now,
what was it like?
The only time we engaged in what I would consider meaningful discussion was when people had an issue. Most folks out there are pretty uninformed about what occurs at the county legislature level, let's say, and I think that's changes a bit in cities and towns, but the further away you get, the further
population disperses.
The folks aren't all that informed. That year, there was there were a couple of really big things that the Democrats did that just blew them out of the water. I don't know if you remember this or not, but they had no
taxes,
and we just unloaded on
raw meat. That was raw meat for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, look, this is a stunt, and
it was true though.
And nobody really understood it. Most people had mortgages. The taxes were getting paid by the bank. They didn't. They weren't sitting down and writing that check out where they saw, oh, hey, no tax this year. They might have not even noticed that they had no tax that year. So it was the dumbest thing going. And so what we did, we were able to paint them as being fiscally foolish. They didn't have to do this. They could have done it, and so we were prepared for those. That was one thing that had been highly publicized in the paper, and the other one was the charter, which was highly publicized in the paper, and we were able to tell them, why we didn't think it was a great idea, and.
Now, would you raise that subject, knowing these were 2 hot button issues, or should have been? Would you go knock on the door and say, "What do you think about the charter idea?" The guy may have said, "What charter?"
No, no. The idea back in the day was to have as many people see you, project an image of, I'm working for this job. I'm walking your neighborhood. If you have a question, I'm available. And then of course the images, I'm going to be available.
Yeah.
And in truth, we outworked the the Dems, and we took all 5 seats in our district. Now, we already had 4 of them. One legislator.
Was it Bob Yellum was your?
Yellum was the Democrat. There were 4 Republicans. One of those Republicans decided not to run. And so Phil Sinagra and I were given the nominations. The other 3, Dick Petro, Ernie Gardner, and Richard Nace, were incumbents. So we already had 3 incumbents with us. Phil and I worked the hardest because we would at least know.
Well, that's Phil.
And and he came in first. I came in second, out of 10. So, but we worked hard. But again, we tackled a lot of issues. The one interesting issue that where people were one-dimensional was on abortion.
Yeah, but the county doesn't.
We tried to explain that to people, and people would say, as you know, well, look, yeah, you're running for legislator now, but you might try and be an assemblyman sometime. You might try, So I want to know what you think. And, and most of the people who asked that question were pro-abortion. So, it was hard for us because neither of us was.
Well, that's 40 years ago. That has shifted somewhat, hasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Hey, let's just wrap up the caller's question, if we could, Mario. I don't know if there was a conspiracy, caller, in terms of timing. It does seem certainly very strange within 24 hours.
Yeah.
The governor comes up with this idea, which I don't think is really going to go anywhere, because it could trickle down to the legislature itself. Some of those people should be retired after God knows how many years.
They don't even want to have that discussion.
And they won't.
Similar to the fact that we had a ballot item that created a reapportionment commission.
Good segue.
And what happened there? They didn't want to give up control. The people of New York State said, we don't want you to have control, but they figured out a way to do it anyway. And just defy the voters, and they would do, and so I don't see this having any chance at all. Maybe for the statewide offices, but the problem with doing it for the statewide offices is then some genius decides, hey, it works well for the statewide offices. Why don't we consider that for the legislative offices? And these people, especially the ones, and by the way, there are so many of them that are just career politicians that have been there forever, and that it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Now, good questions though. I want to. Can I double back to the compensation committee? All right.
Yeah.
So they had a Zoom hearing. I don't know if you knew about this. They had a Zoom meeting. I believe on Wednesday. They had a Zoom meeting, and our elected officials were all able to testify before the commission, being led by former chairman of the legislature, Gerentine, and unanimously, our elected officials said, we think that we should get a pay raise because it's going to be more difficult to attract qualified candidates to our jobs. And on the face of it, I think that is very reasonable. But then if you just stir up the weeds slightly, you say to yourself, wait a second. The sheriff, who thinks he's underpaid, just announced that he's running for re-election. And the other 2 just ran for re-election last year. And there didn't seem,
no lack of, although I think, I don't buy that argument at all. The argument I make is this, and for better for better or worse, 30 or 40 years ago, not to date myself, I think that was a valid argument for both government officials and teachers. In order to attract people to either the profession of teaching or to a career or to elected office, not elected office, but to government jobs, you had to be competitive with the private sector. That was understood. IBM came to town and raised the salaries of everybody. A rising tide, as it were. And so that was that experience, and that might have been because of IBM. It wasn't just here; it was every place. So we have to compete with the private sector. Well, government sets the bar right now. Everybody wants to. If I were a young man again, I'd go into government.
Yeah,
I'd be 25 years old. I get a pretty good job that competes, and there's very little comparison between these department jobs and anything out in the private sector, but nonetheless, they do compare them. So I do 25 years in office, retire in my mid-50s with a pension that might be 60% of my base salary, and benefits to die for the rest of my life, and so forth. So that's not a valid comparison anymore.
No.
I don't buy that at all.
The government's one of the best paying jobs around.
It is, yes, between...
Which is again why we have all these career politicians.
Well, exactly. So, and I'd like to see some people from the private sector. So you watched this Zoom thing? Was there anybody like business leaders or anybody else?
No, I didn't watch it. It was just, I heard about it.
Oh, okay. But get more of a diversity of opinion on this, and I'm not sure the business person who is busting his chops to make the nut every week is going to be would buy this argument that it's better.
If you're running a business, you can't compete with these jobs. The benefits
alone are $40,000 a year.
Yeah, when people are getting $25,000 health care plans, and who can afford that? Other than taxpayers.
But I think they're way behind the curve on the salary structure for these officials. You could say that they were a little bit overpaid when the salaries were set up 10 years ago, 12 years ago. They were making $100,000.
Yeah,
that was it still is. That was a nice paycheck. For people of somewhat dubious background, I mean, how do you get these jobs?
Yeah,
you know somebody in politics, or you have a son,
or you get elected. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know they have a law. I think they call it the Tantillo law, where a legislator can't go into the government after they leave.
Oh yeah.
Which is probably a good idea.
They don't have to. They become lobbyists to make 3 times as much. In any event,
I think I can see where there could be an adjustment here, maybe $10,000. Although just once in a while, I just like to throw stuff out there for discussion. I said, why not cut them back to 90?
What's that?
Cut them back to 90,000. That's still a really nice paycheck.
You still have a lot of takers.
Yeah.
Trust me. I don't mind saying that we work hard, we're entitled, etc. This is what the job should be worth. But the argument that it's not going to attract qualified candidates, that's total horse feathers. I'm sorry.
I mean, the notion that some of these folks make more than their bosses, the deputies.
Oh, yeah. Well, who's the highest paid federal worker?
Dr. Kelsey.
$434,000 a year. That's probably twice what he would make if he was a private practice physician, dealing with screaming babies or,
or screaming mothers.
Yeah.
I also read an article that said he and his wife had a $10 million 401 retirement fund. Well, if you're making $4 bills a year, you could probably invest,
Yeah, and
money to invest.
So now you got doctors running to work for the government.
How about this? This goes to Congress. The notion that it pops up periodically that our Congress members should not be allowed to invest in the stock market while they're in office.
Absolutely.
Me too.
And
they're fighting this thing.
Nancy Pelosi's husband. They.
It's not just Nancy. You know.
No. One of my advisory services tracks all of the investments made by members of Congress.
Wow.
And they use that as a basis for telling you to buy something because these people are loading up on something. Okay?
Can you give us a stock, Mario?
Pelosi's husband is
this is good stuff.
Allegedly one of the he beat virtually every Wall Street investor.
Yeah.
I think his portfolio averages about 60% up a year.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and they're she's worth now over $200 million.
That's obscene.
Well,
that's obscene.
Chapter and verse. And they they brutalized that woman in Georgia.
She was a senator, right?
Yeah. And for investments her husband had made or whatever, nobody bothers to check Pelosi's and their account. So,
except you and your advisors.
Yeah, I mean the guy. This is an advisory service. Do what they're doing in Congress.
Makes sense. So that's not going to happen. There's just too much self-interest there. These people come in. They're average upper middle class, and they leave as multimillionaires.
Absolutely.
All right.
Mm-hmm. It's my early morning. Clear out the throat.
I call you Mario Mucus. There's a story in today's paper. We were going to talk about the governor's race.
Yep.
Do you have it over there?
The paper? Yeah.
Where a former Kingstonian?
Oh, yeah. Carpinelli. Mr.
Carpinelli's?
I think his father was the Conservative Party chairman.
Yes, he was.
In Lauren, right?
I think Lauren was, and there was Bernie. There's two brothers, Bernie and Lauren.
Okay.
Lauren has passed. There are neighbors up on Main Street. One of them lived on Emerson Street, but these are local guys. And And there's getting to be a crowded Republican field.
And we should talk about that.
And it says a Freeman headline in today's paper, Friday, January 21st, says Kingston High School grad, a sheriff, wants to be governor. And Mike Carpinelli recently wrote a letter in support of a man convicted in the January 6th Capitol riot. Well, that's something. This fellow, Mike Carpinelli, is 56, a 1983 graduate of Kingston High School. And he is the sheriff of Lewis County, up in the northwestern part of the state.
Yeah. It's I think somewhere between Buffalo, Rochester, and North, or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much farm country up there.
Yeah.
So there are.
He has no chance.
Well, of course.
And he will not appear on any line, even though he's probably a conservative. He will not get the conservative nomination.
Well, you Republicans need that to be viable at all.
No. What I'm saying is the Conservative Party needs a viable candidate, or they won't be a party. The way they changed the law now.
Oh yeah.
They got rid of the Independent Party. They got rid of all of the other. The Green Party, I think, is off the ballot now. None of them got, it used to be 50, I think 50 or 55,000. Now it's like something like 250,000 votes.
Well, that was an effort to eliminate these
working.
minor
That was
Revenge on
Cuomo
the
going
working
against the
family.
working families.
God, he was a vindictive man, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you crossed him, and you're going to pay. Now, this article list, you know these by rote. The other, they're not impressive. Carpinelli aside, who we agree has no chance. The other candidates, Republican candidates, are U.S. Representative Lee Zeldin. He's from Long Island.
He's from Long Island, and he is doing pretty well in terms of fundraising. Nothing near Hochul. Hochul's got 23 mil. She's making Cuomo look like a piker. Zeldin's got probably around 6.
Okay, and then we have Rob Estorino, who's a perennial loser.
He's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. Podcast host Derek Gibson, who I don't know.
Yep.
And just for laughs, Andrew Giuliani.
Yep.
Son of Rudy, who I remember as a rambunctious little boy. He always seemed to be tugging at his father's coat.
Yeah, and I think he would possibly be more formidable if his father wasn't getting subpoenaed left and right.
If his father wasn't going to jail.
Well, the point is, your dad can't focus on this campaign and make phone calls and grab some IOUs and things of that nature when, nonstop he's getting served with papers left and right all over the place. So I don't see the Giuliani name having the mystique it used to have. But let me say, because we are on the air, that I believe that we will, there'll be another candidate, a very strong candidate, and there's been a lot of talk about Harry Wilson, the entrepreneur who ran when I was county chairman.
That far back? I thought it was
that far back. No, he ran. That's the year he ran against
for comptroller.
For comptroller, and barely lost in a year where we had a very weak slate, and it was a huge year for blue candidates, and Harry almost pulled it out. So on a statewide race, so he's going to be, if he decides to announce and run, he will immediately be the front runner because A, he ran a statewide race. B, he has substantial financial capabilities. And he made a lot of friends. I know that the Ulster County Committee really loved this guy. And I think he would have a lot of support locally if he decided to run. And I believe he's weighing. I believe he's seriously weighing a run. So we should know in a couple of weeks. And I think
should we encourage him to run from this podium?
I've communicated with him and encouraged him to run.
Okay.
And other people in Ulster County have also, but he's getting a lot of encouragement from, I believe, the National Party. And what's interesting, and this is the part, Huey, that makes politics so fascinating. The folks that are in the forest seldom notice the trees. And what's going on right now in this country and in this state is a disaster nationally and statewide. But You can't tell that to the politicians that are doing it. But when you do polling, and when you talk to the little guy, the little guy that goes to the poll, they're not happy, and it's only getting worse. By the way, yesterday I believe the price of a barrel of oil went
90.
over 80, 85, 90, and they expect it to go to 100. When they go to 100, you're going to be paying $4 a gallon for regular, okay? And love him or hate him, and I'm no Trump fan, but when he left office, I took a picture of the gas station on Washington Avenue by the Thruway of what the gasoline was.
At $1.
It
less.
It's even worse now. It was $2.34 a gallon for regular gas. Now it's $3.50 or close to it for regular.
Closer to $3.20, but yeah.
Well, that's
a lot of money.
The new increases haven't filtered in yet. But
listen, we got some grist going here, but I think we
Not
got
to interrupt you guys, because you guys are having a great conversation. Let's go to take a break real quick. We'll come back with birthdays, and then we'll jump back into it.
I'm ready for birthdays, baby.
You're listening to Kingston Community Radio on WGHQ Kingston. On your radio at 920 AM and 92.5 FM, and also online at mykcr.org.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Steve Thomas for Habitat for Humanity Restore. Habitat Restores are nonprofit home improvement stores and donation centers that sell new and gently used furniture, building materials, and appliances to the public at a fraction of the retail cost. The Ulster County Restore at 406 Route 28 in Kingston needs your donations. Call our hotline at 845-853-7499 to schedule your free pickup. And thanks.
January is National Blood Donor Month, and Dunkin' Donuts and the American Red Cross are teaming up to honor blood donors who make a difference. This is Donna Morrissey of the Red Cross. All those who come in to give blood in the month of January at a Red Cross blood drive will receive a $5 Dunkin' Donuts gift card. It's one way we can say thank you for being a hero to patients in need. Your help is needed now. Please call 1-800-RED-CROSS, visit redcrossblood.org, or download the Blood Donor app to find a blood drive near you. Thank you for making a difference.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're fighting against childhood cancer every day. At the heart of this battle are our donors.
Most of us want to make some type of difference in the lives of others. St. Jude does miraculous work.
The fact that no one has to pay, it's a place where everyone is treated as an equal.
Everybody is welcome here, and it doesn't matter your religion or what part of the world you're from, all that is taken away. It just gives you some hope.
It's just a nice feeling to put your energy into something that really does genuinely make a difference in a child's life.
There's just no greater gift. If we have the ability to help, then we have a responsibility to help.
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Find out how you can help at stjude.org.
Hi, my name is Jackie Lovezzo. I'm from Lake Katrine, and I support Kingston Community Radio because it is an invaluable resource to the community and its residents.
This programming is brought to you by the Friends of Kevin Cahill. As a strong advocate of local broadcasting, Assemblymember Cahill urges you to support Kingston Community Radio with your time and donations. Your contributions keep KCR vital and on the air at FM 92.5, AM 920, and on the web at mykcr.org. Please join Assemblymember Cahill and send your gifts of $10, $25, or more to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. Together, let's keep KCR alive.
Okay, we're back. How many birthdays we got there, Mario?
Well, we have birthdays for today, tomorrow, and Sunday.
Oh, that's good.
We don't have a multitude of birthdays, but we have birthdays. So let's get right to the birthdays. And these are special days. So let's start with today, January 21st. So it says, please wish a happy birthday to Mary Ellen Medvey, M-E-D-V-E. I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly, Medvey. From your friends at People's Place. We hope you enjoy your special day. Well, Mary Ellen, you are going to enjoy your special day because you are the only entry today and are officially the winner of the Boy's Dairy Milk House famous cow pie. So, Mary Ellen, happy birthday from all of us at Kingston Community Radio and the Boy's Dairy Milk House. You may pick up your pie at the Boy's Dairy Milk House on 62 O'Neill Street in Kingston. And happy birthday to Mary Ellen. Tomorrow, January 22nd, we have a birthday wish for Franca Marchetti. And it says, please wish a happy birthday to Franca Marchetti. From your friends at People's Place, we hope you enjoy your special day. People's Place is on a roll. And Franca, you officially are the only entry for tomorrow, and therefore, by default, the winner of the Boy's Dairy Milk House famous cow pie. You may pick it up at 62 O'Neill Street in Kingston, New York. And Franca, happy birthday from all your friends at People's Place and Kingston Community Radio. And finally, we have a birthday for Sunday. And the birthday person on Sunday, it says, please wish a happy birthday to Laura Milcheski from your friends at the Friendship Bible Coffee. Laura, happy birthday on Sunday. Again, you are the sole entry for this Sunday, and therefore, by default, the winner of the cow pie, the famous cow pie, from Boy's Dairy Milk House, 62 O'Neill Street in Kingston. And it's happy birthday from your friends at Kingston Community Radio and the Friendship Bible Coffee. So the birthdays are in the bank. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. 3 birthdays in 3 days.
Happy birthday to all.
And a happy birthday to anybody that we missed. Call those birthdays in. Those cow pies are absolutely delicious. I had a craving, by the way, yesterday for some of that Boy's Brothers vanilla ice cream. I just couldn't resist. My wife thinks I'm crazy. She's like, it's freezing out. I said, I don't care. I've just got to get a couple of scoops of that darn ice cream.
Their black raspberry is like, I used to think Friendly's was the best because my mom used to bring, obviously it was right on Washington. Yeah. But their ice cream their black raspberry ice cream is, all of it is good.
All of their stuff. I mean,
Cameron Rylance, who's a host on Tuesday, he goes, there's no others. He's like, I don't know if I didn't grow up in Kingston, I would have never known it, but he goes, I can't eat any other sour cream but theirs. And he goes, you got to eat it pretty quick because it goes, there's no.
Yeah, no.
You got to eat it pretty fast. But he goes, it is the best sour cream he's ever had. So I was like, sour cream. I tried it, this is a couple years ago, he told me the story. Now I don't eat any other sour cream but Boyce Brothers.
Oh, I'm going to have to pass that along because we
I put it in chili now, the sour cream.
Not a lot. Oh, yeah.
But it is, oh my God, it's good, man.
Yeah, they're great local company. Anyway, 331-9255 is our phone number. You're here with U. Reynolds, Mario Catalano. We have a call. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we doing today?
Good. What's on your mind?
Hey, it's pretty funny. A person running for the governor of New York State can lose 50 out of 62 counties and still be elected governor?
All right, you know what? Could you repeat that? Just get closer to the phone. We're having just a little trouble here with the...
Okay, I said it's pretty funny when somebody running for governor of New York State can lose 50 out of 62 counties and still be elected governor of the state of New York.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that is ridiculous. You know, he lost most of the state except New York City, Albany, Syracuse, Buffalo, and still managed to get the guy elected. And that's going to happen this time here with Hochul, too. I guarantee you he'll lose most of your smaller counties where the people really could use the help and everything, too. And you were speaking earlier about politicians down in Washington, where it's funny how they go in with barely any money in the bank or whatever, and they walk out millionaires.
Yeah.
Gee, are they getting inside information on stock? Do they know what bills they're going to come up with that's going to change things, especially Pelosi and the other ones? And look at the Clintons. They came out of the White House almost broke. And same thing with Obama. And look at the millions of dollars they've got. And yet, when it comes to pensions, right, if you got a veteran's pension and a postal pension, you lose over half your Social Security when it comes time to draw it. And that was a bill that they passed right back to where they say you can't double dip, but yet you got people who makes less than $60,000 a year with the two pensions, and when they go to draw Social Security, they lose half of their Social Security.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And something's not right. You got people who never put a dime in, they're drawing full Social Security. And yet those people who get paid into the Social Security, especially if they got their 40 quarters. But you guys have a great show every other week. I enjoy listening to you guys, and you guys do a great job. Keep up the good work, and we'll keep listening out here in KCL Lane. So,
well, thank you for calling in. And
a couple of comments, caller, on your input. Excuse me. Those 4 or 5 areas, including New York City that you mentioned, Syracuse and so forth, Albany, I think they would constitute about 60% of the state population. So it's a little misleading when you have like Lewis County with mostly prisons and cows. So
but he did win. He did win Ulster County by 5,000 votes.
Who did?
Cuomo. That put him over the top. He had a good day in Ulster County, and we'll see how that works out. We're very interested in the congressional race.
Yes, I'm very interested in the midterms too, because with all the chaos down in Washington and everything else now, it should be a very interesting midterm election.
Absolutely. And
talk that they have about getting rid of the filibuster. What, we're going to change that law every 2 or 4 years to suit the party that's in charge? Come on. That thing's been around for over 200 years. And there's a reason for it, to where to pass any major legislation, you need to have both sides or part of both sides agreeing to it. And
I completely agree with you, and the Democrats in this country should be rallying around Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema for saving their party.
Yes, I tell you what, I'm not a Democrat, but I tell you what, I thank both of them. And I emailed both of them telling them to thank them for their stance, because same thing with the Electoral College. It is doing exactly what it was set up to do. Whether people want to agree with it or not, every state has a say. And that worked for well over 150, 200 years. So the only reason they want to change is they want power. And that is the only reason. Nothing about being more equal. They just want power. And people need to realize that, because they're taking this country in a definitely wrong direction. So.
Good point.
You guys have a great day. I'm going be leaving shortly to go down to breakfast with some of my buddies from the veterans groups down in New Windsor. And I'll be listening to you on the way down, so have a great day, gentlemen.
We'll try our best. And thank you again for the call. We're at 331-9255. If anybody wants to engage in conversation with us, ask a question. We were talking, the caller brought up the filibuster. That was something that I was, pretty concerned about because, it's kind of interesting how people don't learn from their mistakes. If you remember, Harry Reid was very frustrated. Harry was not an easy guy to get along with. Decided to go it alone. We can change things. And they changed the filibuster rule on federal judges. And they had control at the time, so they got some judges approved. That's fine. But when Trump came into office, he loaded those lower courts with federal judges because he didn't need any Democratic support. I don't know what they were thinking. There's going to come a time when the Republicans are in charge. Same thing's going to happen now. We want to pass voting rights, so we're going to change the filibuster rules so we can pass this with only 51 votes. But what happens next year if the Republicans have 51 votes? They can just roll that whole thing back, and we're going to be going up and down like a yo-yo. Instead of saying, why don't we get together with the Republicans and see what their objections are, and let's move slowly and see what we can do about changing some of this where we can get enough support.
I think you're living in the distant past, Mario. That used to be the way things were done. They're not done that way anymore. It's situational. It's who's ever in power does what they think they need to do.
Don't you think, though, that's even more polarizing?
Yes, of course it is.
And that's why at least we should strive for some sort of compromise and working together. I mean, it is Biden. I don't know if you saw any of his press conference on Wednesday, but I thought it was embarrassing. Because even the liberal media was smacking him around about, listen, you promised that you were going to unite the country. Are we more united now than we were when you took office? And then he openly admits that he didn't even talk to any Republicans about any of this legislation. Mitt Romney was kind of out there waiting to be consulted, and maybe he would have switched his vote. Maybe Susan Collins, maybe Murkowski. A lot of the moderate Republicans might have gone along with something if they had been consulted. The guy never even picked up the phone to talk to him. And this is a man who claims that he was going to unite the country. Well, you can't unite the country if you're not talking to the Republicans. So that was a bunch of hogwash. And, poor Joe, they just tell him what to say, but I'm not sure he actually understands. So the thing I found remarkable, okay, and you've been involved in many, and I'm very interested in your take on this. Did you notice when he began the press conference that he had specific people to call on? He wasn't even sure who they were or where they were. He just called out a name and then was hoping that somebody would stand up, and then they would move the mic to that person. While they were moving the mic to that person, I don't know if you noticed this, but while they were moving the mic to that person, he was flipping pages. So he had a notebook, and he was flipping pages to go to the answer to that question. So maybe to to save the press people embarrassment, maybe they ask them, what general topic might you be, interested in discussing? They could then anticipate what the question was going to be. They can anticipate all the possible answers, put them in his notebook. Because the first 5 or 6 people were called on, they were preordained. They were, every time he did that, if you go back, if there's still a video of it around, every time he did that, he flipped pages to the answers. He kept moving the book. Why would you be moving the book before you even hear the question? Unless if you knew what the topic was going to be.
I really didn't take note of that, and my bad. I just thought he was going to, as you said, a topic or a briefing that he'd have the information. I mean, Saki. She has her. They shoot her from the side. She has her briefing books right in front of her.
What channel did you watch it on?
I like to flip around.
Okay.
Probably all the 2 or 3 channels I look at.
Okay, so if you were watching it on CNN, you didn't see it because they didn't show the podium. They only showed Biden. If you were watching it on Fox, their camera was lower, and you could watch him flipping pages.
Wow.
So this is how these people manipulate us. CNN, they're such an embarrassment.
Going back to your taking the temperature, which is I think what we're going to be doing. I was as surprised as you when I went to CNN and MSNBC for what they call mainstream.
Yeah.
I don't think they're mainstream by any means, but mainstream media, major media.
Yeah.
Compared to Fox, which is obviously right, but that they were critical of him.
Yeah.
And to me, that's pretty serious. You remember when Walter Cronkite went to Vietnam, and he had the helmet on him. He was a World War II vet.
Yeah.
And he stood there, and from Vietnam, he said, I don't think we can win this war, no matter what we do. And LBJ said, he was watching, he was an avid TV watcher.
Sure.
He's watching this on TV, and he turns to one of his aides and says, I think we've lost Middle America.
Yep.
And so that's what we're in some sense gauging public opinion through these mediums.
Yep.
And that if I would be as amazed, I was amazed, quite frankly. Maybe I'm amazed, but I would have been as amazed if Fox suddenly said, that was a pretty good speach. I love that. I love this guy. Really, we're so. I find it. I can't think of the word because I'm not good at words, but for our modern media to talk about the nation being divided, when I think in large part it is the modern media that is dividing us.
Divided, yeah. Now, the other interesting thing that I noticed, because I always watch this, and again, if you can go back into some of the questions that weren't canned questions, okay? So the second hour of it, he was taking questions from a lot of different media sources. And if you go back in there and you watch, what you're going to see is he would get a question that was difficult, and he would just kind of repeat the question, talk, now on your second question, and at one point he asked somebody, what was your first question again? And, but as soon as he started to stumble slightly, in my opinion, they were putting up answers for him on his teleprompter, because all of a sudden he would swing into, from stumbling around a little bit, he would swing into an answer, and if you watched his eyes, they were moving left to right, and he was
The
reading.
teleprompter's supposed
He
to
was
move.
reading, exactly. He was reading the answer. The only place those answers could have been was on the teleprompter. Probably had some folks in the back room saying, okay, as soon as he starts to stumble, get some answers up for him. And then he would read the answers, and he would sound very coherent. But he was reading them. And look, even with the reading, he managed. And the one thing that everybody is completely upset about was his indication that if Russia did just a minor incursion, that that would be okay. And people are like, what? Did this guy just tell Putin, all right, just take a little bit of Ukraine and that'll be okay with us?
I would say this about that. I have never in my column compared anyone to Hitler or to the Nazi era and World War II. Although I find it, even as a young college student, I found it fascinating how this monster could rise from the gutters to do what he did. However, in this case, just a little bite. Take a little piece of a sovereign nation.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a guy named Chamberlain that offered that to Hitler, and it wasn't a little bite either. It was about 3 million people.
Yep.
That and the Czechs were not even in the room when they divided up their country. Just take a little bit. I think it's called appeasement.
Yeah.
And we learned a horrible lesson from that. No, we didn't. That was World War II is essentially what it was.
Yeah.
And that he just wouldn't stop asking for little pieces. And for the President of the United States, they must have been, the guys in the back, the people in the back room must have just gone cold.
Well, they immediately issued a statement, but it was too late, and because, the Russians are watching that press conference just the way we were. And I think it was too late for that. Now, but here's what was even more interesting. On Thursday, the day after the press conference, Dana Perino has a show at 9 o'clock. She was a former press secretary for Bush. She has a show at 9 o'clock on Fox.
9 a.m.?
9 a.m. Jen Psaki has never given, in the first full year, has never talked to anybody at Fox News.
Yeah.
And the day after the press conference, she went on Fox News to try and do damage control. That's when I knew that the White House staff must have considered this press conference a total disaster, because why else would they be able to smoke her out and get her on Fox other than to try and do damage control? And she's very good at it. And so that was a clear indication to me that his crew, I don't think they'll ever let him go off script like that again. And I'll take answers. Yeah, how long you guys want to go? And whatever. And of course they were just throwing stuff at him, and he just didn't have answers. He didn't have answers.
It wasn't in the script.
So how about somebody asked him about the polls? The guys, he's getting massacred in the polls. And he says, I don't watch polls. What are you talking about? You don't watch polls?
Listen, if the polls are up...
don't go to the bathroom without looking at a poll.
If the polls are around 60%, he'd be watching the polls. I think in some ways he's been unfairly judged. I know you don't want to hear this.
No,
I think his administration, as he pointed out, I don't disagree with him, that the first 6 months of his administration, first half, he did some positive things, some very good things. The infrastructure bill, the COVID bill, serious legislation and bipartisan. I believe that he got through Congress. Lately, it's been pretty bad. I think it's just unfair to look at the last 6 months, and that's typical of all our lives. What have you done for me lately?
Well, let me just say this, okay? the infrastructure bill was around, that bill was begun during the Trump administration. Trump tried to get an infrastructure bill. The Democrats blocked it. He could not get that bill through the House once they took control of the House. Nothing. They wouldn't give this guy, a spoonful of blacktop. There was no question about it. They effectively blocked it. When Biden came in, everybody in the country wanted it, and the Republicans helped and jumped on the infrastructure bill, and it passed in a bipartisan fashion. It wasn't complete Republican support, but it was bipartisan. That's fine. He had nothing to do with that. That bill was sitting there, and it was essentially started by Trump, but the Nancy Pelosi blocked.
Well, Mario, let's be fair here. The man gets he takes all the blame for what's bad, and he ought to be able to take a little credit for what was good.
I'm giving him credit, but what I'm trying to say is they're also delusional because somehow they consider a 6-vote majority in the House and a dead heat in the Senate
as a mandate,
as having a mandate. That is not a mandate. And anybody in their right mind would realize, listen, we have a balanced government here. We've got to come up with balanced measures, and we've got to bring both sides on this, or we're never going to get anything done. So they passed a COVID bill because they had to pass it. They passed it without Republican support, and a total of 9% of the bill actually went to COVID. I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll give you an example. They spent more money, thanks to Schumer, out of that bill. They gave more money to the New York subway system than they did to the buying COVID pills for the entire country.
You mean medicine? Yeah.
The medicine, because there's a pill now available.
Oh.
All right, there's an anti-COVID pill. More money was spent on the subways in New York City. So how is that a COVID bill? How the hell is that a COVID bill when 9% of the total revenue in that bill went to COVID? It was, let's call it a COVID bill, and then we're going to load it up with all our favorite projects.
Christmas tree.
And we're talking about $1.75 trillion. Now, let me ask you a question, because neither you nor I are economists, okay? But do you believe, or does anybody in this country believe, that by spending another $2 trillion, we're going to bring inflation down, like he said? Seriously.
No, I no. The classic, and this has been thoroughly hashed out. It's just too much money chasing too little goods.
And goods and services.
Yeah.
I'll give you a prime example. I have a new Genesis, okay? I have a new Genesis, 1,000 miles. It needs a warranty part, okay? Genesis cannot get that part to me until February 25th. They took the car in January 3rd. They can't get the part until February 25th.
Maybe.
And with a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
So what's going on? What is going on? All right? It's the same old story. Everything is backed up in Los Angeles. Everything is backed up in Los Angeles. You look, you can't imagine. So what did they do? Here was Buttigieg, who's the transportation secretary. Here's his solution. You know what we ought to do? Why don't we anchor these ships further offshore so nobody can see them? And that's what they did. Instead of having them anchored in the harbor, they're now anchored 20, 30, 40 miles, 50 miles out in the ocean so that nobody can see.
Out of sight, out of mind.
What a freaking disaster this is. So I can't get my car fixed for 2 months because of a
brand new car.
Yeah, brand new car.
Right.
Yeah, well, I decided that I could trust the Koreans to build a good car, 1,000 miles, and the
wait, that's who makes Genesis?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Hyundai.
that.
It's a Hyundai.
Oh. I actually like Genesis. I didn't know there was such a.
Let's
John
put-
Jock's got the same one you got. I like them.
I think it's a great car.
Yeah.
They offered to take it back, and I said, no, where am I going to go get a car? I
Right.
mean, you can't have the car back.
And you
Just go-
said the only dealerships are in Goshen and Albany?
Yeah, that's it for Genesis, yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, real quick before you guys get back into politics, John Finch just called me from Ulster Savings Bank. I guess he forgot to get the birthday in time, but his father, Jack Finch,
today.
94 years old today.
Oh,
so happy
God.
birthday, Jack Finch. And many, many
Absolutely.
more.
Absolutely, Jack.
Yeah. I was like, damn, John, you should have got that in. I would have automatically made him the winner.
Not only that, but when I ran into Jack at the WGHQ Christmas Fund.
Oh, that's right, he was there.
He was there.
Yo, he's
he
there
said
every
to
year.
me, he's religious. He listens to our show
Yeah.
every other
does
Friday.
John.
Jack, we know you're listening. God bless
Yeah,
you.
happy birthday, Jack.
94 years of putting up with us.
94 years young.
Boy.
I think Jack is the oldest living former alderman, certainly the oldest living former legislator.
Yeah.
94 is Jack. That's quite in common. And Jack's in pretty good shape. Speaking of cars, Jack drives a Toyota, which is what you should have bought.
I should have. You know what? Let me just say this. In retrospect,
And I advised you up front.
I probably shouldn't have bought anything. We actually wanted a Lexus.
Whoa.
We wanted a Lexus. They're gorgeous, except what happened was when we got to the Lexus dealer in Goshen, they're also in Goshen, they only have a 3-star rating for safety.
What about Keeler Motors up in Albany? Or you didn't want to go to Albany?
Well, we were going in that direction.
Oh, okay.
So I decided to go down there first, and their rollover is only a 3-star, and their overall is only a 4-star. So that, I have to say this, one of the things that I really put a lot of emphasis on is the safety. I don't really care that much about looks and color. There are other people in my family who are more involved with that. I just like to have a safe car. And I've always had cars with 5-star, accident ratings. So I was so disappointed because they had a Lexus there that I fell in love with. And a beautiful white SUV. I mean, the thing was gorgeous. Loaded, had everything we could have wanted. But it didn't have the rating. And I just can't, I would...
You'd be nervous about it.
Well, if something ever happened to my wife, I would be devastated that we bought this car and, some schmoblo hit her, and hurt her. And so I decided no. So as we're pulling out of town, is this Genesis dealer. So you know what? Let's go over there and take a look, because Genesis is the model we have, the GV80, was the car that Tiger flipped and walked away.
Well, kind of walked away.
Yeah, he's actually playing golf again.
He's playing golf again.
I tell you, his kid Charlie is no joke. Have you seen that kid tee off?
Oh, yeah.
He could drive a ball farther than me. He's 11.
Well, that's a low bar.
Yeah.
I know.
Hello.
I mean, if your dad's Tiger Woods, you better be able to drive a golf ball, right?
Yeah, and I'm a Tiger Woods fan, but I can't
like
hit
Tiger
the ball
too.
150 yards. But anyway, so we go to the Genesis dealer, and they've got one Genesis, one GV80 in the whole lot. They had just gotten it in, still had the wrap on it, and we're like, okay, how much is this car? Because you can't find cars, by the way, and I said to the guy, now listen, I understand that this is how much it cost. Aren't you going to discount this? He said, we're the only dealer around that's not charging oversticker. Wow. But they did give me a veteran's discount. So they gave me $500 for being a veteran, and I appreciated that. That's nice. And so that was it. And, a month later, the car's in for repairs, and they can't get the part for 2 months. So not good. Now they're helping us out a little bit, but they offered to make our car payments while the car's tied up. Well, I said, all right, that's decent. It's not necessarily their fault that everything's backed up at Los Angeles Harbor either. They're backed up 50 miles out into the ocean.
I thought not to belabor this, but I thought your offer or your proposal that they take the the gear shift out of another car and put it in your car was reasonable and would have dealt immediately with the problem, and they wouldn't accept that.
No, they said they had a company policy that if they took a part out of that car, they would have to sell that car as a damaged car. They would have to disclose that a part on the car had been replaced, and it wasn't a factory gear shift anymore, and the whole McGilla, and it was so complicated, and I can understand that. If I went in and the guy said to me, by the way, we took a part off your car and we replaced it, and I'm like, whoa, you mean this isn't factory? No, one of our,
some guy in Kingston.
Yeah, the guy that sweeps the floors in the back, he just followed the book and he put it in. Don't worry about it, it's going to work. I'm not.
Hey, listen, we got about 15 minutes, I think, by the clock, and we haven't touched on what was going to be one of our major issues locally.
Yes.
Was the, it's called the, what is it called?
Yeah.
The rental, it's called Good Cause.
Good cause.
Council, the Good Cause
Eviction law.
Eviction plan, and that we wanted to discuss that pro and con for our listeners. Mario, would you give them the phone number in case somebody wants to join this conversation?
Our number is 331-9255. We're going to be talking about the new law that unanimously passed the Common Council on good cause, what's known as good cause eviction, meaning essentially that landlords would have to follow a protocol on how to evict a tenant. So,
do we have a caller?
All right, we got a caller. Good morning, caller. What would you like to discuss this morning?
Good morning, everybody. Two things. You talk about politicians, and you quoted LBJ earlier. LBJ used to say about that politicians can do good and do well, meaning they could do good and they could do well for themselves. So that was his. That was one of his things. And also, just wanted to throw out today's the 20th anniversary of the passing of Mayor T.R. Gallo.
Yeah, we're gonna conclude the show, caller, with some comments about the late mayor.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding us about that.
This was he was just a tremendous mayor, and obviously City Hall, the building is his lasting legacy. Is quite a.
All right, thanks. Thanks for the call. Thanks for the reminder. So, let's get back to the issue.
Good cause.
The good cause. So essentially, the design of this. Hey, Lawrence.
Oh, we lost Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Did he say goodbye, or
Yeah, we did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He wanted to talk about TR.
Yeah, we're going to talk about TR.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up with that.
Okay, good.
So, ostensibly, it's designed to protect tenants who are, if you look at the preamble is our neighbors are being forced out by gentrification, and so this law is essentially designed to protect them. Now, by way of full disclosure, there was a time in my life that I owned rental property. Okay? I no longer own any rental property. But there was a time when I did. I owned an apartment building in Saugerties, I owned one in Cairo, and I actually owned a trailer park in Greene County. And what I will tell you is that it's not all, rental ownership is not all that it's cracked up to be. And this, in my opinion, is very one-sided. It takes into account the tenant's point of view, but there's got to be a balance here between decent rental property owners and tenants. And when I read this, the first thing that came to my mind, Yui, was you would have to be a Philadelphia lawyer to own a piece of property in the city of Kingston. You'd have to be out of your mind. And I think what's going to happen is I think you're going to see landlords reacting very negatively. And I think you're going to see some of these properties, people are going to refuse to invest in these properties because they can't get the kind of return. Now, I'll give you an example. They set a limit on 5%. If you try and raise the rent more than 5%, you have to abide by any number of new rules, regulations, and there's only some way to evict a tenant or whatever. Here's what I can tell you. If you need any repair work done to your building, there is no way you can do it for less than 25 or 30% more than it was 2 years ago. That's how much the costs have gone up.
Yeah.
So their opinion here is you as a landlord can spend astronomically to put in a new boiler. And I'll give you an example. Okay, I put in a boiler in my house when we changed to natural gas a few years back, and I think it was about $5,000 or $6,000. I need a new boiler in my office building, which is about the same size as the boiler I put in my house. $14,000.
Wow.
2 years. Okay, so same contractor, the whole works. The boiler costs more than $6,000 now. All right. So my point is, how does somebody who has a piece of rental property, who needs a new roof and the price of the roof is doubled, who needs to build a wall and the 2x4s have tripled or quadrupled in price, who can't buy a piece of carpet if he wants to put down carpet because that's doubled in price, and how are they? Where's the balance here, Yui, between that and, well, you can't raise your rent because you're going to disenfranchise, one of your tenants. Well, everything has gone up. If you're paying the electric, my electric bill's doubled. The cost of home heating oil doubled.
Doubled?
Oh, just about. It will this winter. I mean, it's high. Well, I'll give you an example. My natural gas, I used to have a natural gas contract for 35 cents per British thermal unit or whatever. It's now 68 cents. Okay? That's almost double. So the point is, you're providing heat for these people, right? Fine. Your electric bill doubled. Your heating bill increased substantially. I won't say doubled, but and you're not, according to this, you're not allowed to pass any of these costs. There's nothing in this bill that says if the cost of operating your facility increases, if the cost of utilities increase, if the cost of taxes increase, whatever, you can't pass any of that on to your tenant, other than
5%.
5%, and 5% is not going to do anything.
Well, I think reading from the whereas of this bill, this is quote unquote. This is the sense of the Common Council. Now, this is not law yet. It has to, and it will be, but it has to be. It has to go to public hearing, and then it has to be signed into law by the mayor, who I don't know if he's taken a position on this. He probably is in favor of this law. Quote: "We have seen large numbers of our neighbors displaced, meaning on the street, because they cannot afford increasing rents. The purpose of this law is to protect tenants from exorbitant rent increases," and define the word exorbitant, apparently they have, anything above 5%.
5% is exorbitant.
Yeah. Rent increases that could result in increased homelessness, which it could, and further displacement within the city. So this is a tenants bill, essentially. But it's a reaction to what's been happening in your time frame in the last 2 years. Aging facilities, we can run them off. Dutch Village, Stony Run, most of the big apartment complexes, by our definition, in Kingston and the surrounding areas, have been purchased by investors. And in almost every case, they've increased rents by $300, $400, $500 a month. Taking the side of like me, a senior citizen living on a fixed income, somebody's paying $1,000 a month, which used to be pretty stiff rent. They're paying $1,000 a month, and it's most of their Social Security payment. Elderly folks, and all of a sudden they're hit with a bill for $300 or $500. Holy cow!
Yeah.
What do you do? By your token, the landlords have to get a fair return on. Now I don't know what it is. Is it 10% profit? I was a landlord. That was a lot of things, actually.
Yeah.
I was a landlord. I lived on the property.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, that doesn't encourage. Now, if you live on the property, that's different. Okay. As long as you have fewer than 4 units and you live there.
Yeah, well, that's a standard. That has been a standard.
And you can also evict people if you need the apartment for yourself.
For myself, yeah.
Or a family member.
So that stays into effect. There's quite a difference between 3 and 4 units, though. The 4 units go the commercial rate.
Yeah.
But I was always reluctant to raise rents, and I juggle. Fortunately, nothing really like a roof or a boiler ever went bad. But if it did, I'd be struggling. There's certainly a political element to this. There are roughly it's probably changed a little bit, but there are 8,800 properties on the rolls in Kingston, as an example, of which 8,000 are residential.
Okay.
So you can see who the government would cater to, which is, and I saw a statistic in the Freeman by advocates for this bill that said there were 6,000 renters in the city of Kingston. Now, that doesn't mean that 3/4 of the residences. I dare say 3/4 of the residences are single-family homes, or 2-family homes.
Remember Mario's corollary.
Calories, yeah.
Figures lie and liars figure.
Oh, yeah, of course. I understand that.
So they always put forth the numbers that are favorable to their argument.
I had a conversation with the mayor once. We were sitting in his office, and he was bemoaning the fact that veterans got these exemptions for their service for lifetime. And he said, it's one thing when a veteran comes home from the war or from his service and he needs a little help to get started, buy a house or give him an exemption. But he said they go on to, many of them, to successful careers, and they make a pretty decent living, the business people or whatever, government workers. And that, at what point does this thing, get capped? And I said to him,
good question.
Well, how many people are you talking about? And he goes, about 5,000 at that time. A lot of these people have died since. This is some time ago. So I said, gee, Mayor, I don't really know much about politics yet, but it seems to me if you screw 5,000 people all at the same time, it's not going to go well. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, I think you're right. So they never did anything about that. Now, this 6,000 number might be exaggerated, and it's certainly, it's liar's figure and figure's lie. But the remaining problem in Kingston, I think, And I see this firsthand, delivering food to people who really can't feed themselves without government assistance. It's in our country, in our city, and there are hundreds and hundreds of these households that, I mean, I've delivered to all of them, but I've delivered to most of them. But, their situations, they're barely making it. They can't afford their own food. Rupco seems to put up a project every, but it's a finger in the dike. There are, I understand the last figure I saw from Rupco that bills affordable housing was that they have 1,000 people trying to get into these or waiting to get into these units. I mean, is the answer for the government, say even the Kingston Housing Authority, which I understand is supposed to provide clean, affordable housing for our population? Should they be building more of these units?
Sure.
If this business plan between tenant and owner doesn't work anymore for either one of them, I don't think these owners want to. I mean, owners are entitled, and now tenants are being entitled.
Yeah.
Okay. Something to say for that. I mean, it doesn't get much more basic than housing. They're entitled to a fair return, to being treated fairly. But what's the definition of fairly? It's not 5%. Certainly not on the owner's part. And as you predict, and I think you're right on this, that if an owner can't afford to keep the place up, he doesn't have too many choices. He can sell it, probably at a loss. Just get the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't do anything for the tenant, because the new owner that comes in is going to be faced with the same issues, and he's going to attempt to raise rents. I think the bottom line is, this certainly favors the tenants, but I don't know if it helps them.
I think that's a great assessment. Did you want to?
Oh yeah, we got a few minutes.
Our show. We want to.
Yeah. Thanks for the caller who reminded us, but we were aware that it was 20 years ago today that we learned of the sudden passing of Mayor T.R. Gallo, who I think was 41 years old when he died.
Wait, how old was he? 41?
41, yeah.
Jeez.
I believe he was 41. And
maybe 43.
I think he was born in 1960. And his birthday was in July.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. We were friends. I didn't have many friends in politics, and that didn't prevent him from chewing me out when he didn't like something I wrote, or me criticizing him when I didn't like something he did. But we were able to put that aside, which is unusual these days.
Yeah.
Now it's you're either with me or you're against me. I was actually a year ahead of this. I wrote a fairly definitive piece a year ago.
I think I remember that.
Yes, that much to my chagrin, it was a moving piece, I thought. It talked about my friendship with him and what he did. And then the caller called up here and said, it's next year. Oh, my gosh. So we got that wrong. But he is fondly remembered, even though he was in office for, I think, about 8 years. And I think he might have been a lifetime mayor. Talk about term limits.
He really had the pulse of this community.
Yeah, he did. It was amazing how he had the pulse. He knew everything that was going on, and
people loved working with him. He was easy to work with.
He had his moments, but by and large, they used to ride around. He and a couple of department heads would ride around in the mayor's car, or no, it's actually the fire chiefs, and they'd be on patrol, and the three of them. It was Salzman, the DPW guy, Gorsline, and the mayor, and they called that the cone of silence. And within that car, they could say anything to each other, scream and holler and argue, and then when they went back to work, it was back to work. The last time I saw TR was at the and he was a showman.
Yeah.
Charlie Landy called him a carnival barker, and he was in a sense. He was a showman, And he put on those senior citizen dinners at the auditorium, and they were packed.
Yeah.
There were hundreds of people there.
500 people.
Yeah. And he harangued me. He says, why don't you volunteer? He says, you go to the dinners, you eat for nothing. And so I said, yeah, I will. So I happened to volunteer that New Year's Eve at TR's party. And he and Jimmy Satile, who couldn't wait to get to the bars after midnight, I remember these guys standing in line and shaking hands with all those senior citizens. They would leave at 10 o'clock because they couldn't stay up.
Yeah.
None of them ever saw the ball come down again. And then these two guys would depart for their own parties. But and I don't know how many said to Galley, "Oh, such a nice young man," and he was a nice young man. I wonder if time, TR had his excesses.
Yeah.
We all do to some extent. Whether he would have had the enthusiasm and the energy and the commitment that he had to city government and his city. He was very proud of his city.
Yeah.
If he were alive today, I don't doubt he'd be mayor. He had no interest in moving anywhere else. He might have been interested in county executive. He would have been, I think, a little bit out of his depth because he was a Kingstonian.
Yeah,
and this was his town, and he was raised. His father was the alderman at large, and he grew up in politics with Frank Koenig and those guys.
Oh, sure.
And whether he would have taken the pension, and I know he would have increased his salary somewhat.
Yeah, sure.
And in some respects, it was kind of a dead-end job in that respect, that he didn't seem to have any ambitions other than to get reelected all the time. And he would have been up for reelection in a couple of years. I don't know, but I think he came in office at a time when the city was in its doldrums.
Mm-hmm.
There were one-term mayors, and they were
Yeah.
defeated for reelection. I mean, that's very unusual. But he came in, and he did visible things. You got the feeling you were getting your money's worth from this guy.
Yeah.
He put the flower pots on Broadway. A small thing, perhaps, but it cleaned it up, and he paved Broadway. It was the last time Broadway was paved before this mayor paved it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think his legacy, of course, they say his legacy is City Hall. He wasn't crazy about doing that project. He knew it was going to be expensive, but he somehow finagled the books. He used money from bond issues that had been paid off to finance City Hall. And he had a lot of imagination in that respect, to use the word politely, and so he is long remembered and in many ways respected and missed. And I wish he were sitting here. I wish he were sitting here to celebrate 20 years.
Yeah. Good. No, he was a good man. You guys, another excellent show again today.
Thank you.
Mario, you have a safe trip.
Thank you, sir.
I hope to see you back here in 2 weeks.
I will try.
You guys stay warm today. It's going to be cold this weekend.
We can deal with it.
All right, good. That's what I want to hear. We'll be back. Listeners, have a good weekend. We'll be back Monday with Medical Monday. Take care, everyone.